testimony, the statement or declaration of a witness, evidence in support of a fact or statement, proof, an open declaration or profession. You're about to hear a testimony, a true, honest testimony from a fellow struggler who has found life change in the power of Jesus Christ through Celebrate Recovery. Are you ready to hear it?
Let me start by saying Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered 12-step program. And as soon as I say the words 12-step program, as soon as those words came out of my mouth, immediately you thought of alcohol and drug addiction. But let me open your eyes to some truth. Long after the effects of the drugs and the alcohol are gone, the weight of the world's problems are still here and still unresolved. And it's not until you get to the core of the problem and start dealing with them does true recovery begin. Nobody is exempt from the hurts of this world. We all end up down at times. So regardless of how you cope with your stress, your anger, your resentment, or your pain from the past, Celebrate Recovery is for you. No hurt is too big, and no hurt is too small for God to heal.
Hi, my name is Dana, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. And it is only through Him that I have victories over gambling, relationship indiscretions, and I am learning how to control my anger, depression, and anxiety. In the summer of 2017, I was introduced to Celebrate Recovery by the man standing next to me. I am a firm believer that God brings angels in our lives when we need them. And at the time I met Vince, I was at my rock bottom. I had lost my job because I was stealing money to support my gambling habit. And in doing so, I lost my kids and my life in Nevada as I know it. I came back to Texas to live with my mom and my sisters until Nevada brought charges against me. But God knew I needed help, and He placed Vince in my life. He would talk about going to meetings on Thursday evenings, and after a month or two of dating, he asked if I wanted to go. Now, all I knew at 12-step programs was AA from my dad. I went because I wanted to hang out with this guy, and I also knew I needed change. I was really moved from the first time I went. I loved the worship songs at the beginning and the testimonies and lessons taught each week. But what I really liked was small group, where men and women go separate places, and we really share the pains we are experiencing at that moment in time. I remember taking my first blue chip September 7th, 2017. And as I was doing so, the Mansfield police were trying to arrest me at my sister's old house. Emily's neighbor let us know, and when I got home that evening from being high in life because I had decided to start living for God, my life would once again be turned upside down. So September 8th, I turned myself in and eventually made my way to Elko County Jail in Nevada and would stay until March 26, 2018. But because I had chosen to follow God and I had taken that blue chip, I believe God sent me more angels. Several of the ladies I went to church with in Nevada came to visit, and they brought Celebrate Recovery to me. I studied the CR Bible daily, and once a week, my church friends came and we would discuss the lessons I had done, and we would share God together. I truly believe I'm standing here today because God had a plan for me that summer. CR is a wonderful program, and God is the center of it all. And I want to take this moment to thank the church for supporting us. And I look forward to seeing more people come and learn how to deal with your hurts, your habits, and your hands. Thank you.
Okay, Dana. Mine's a little more entailed. Okay, so here we go. I have a very long and extensive history of drug and alcohol use. My entire adult life was consumed by addiction of one sort or another. But I want to skip forward in my life when I first recognized that my drug usage had become a noticeable problem to me. But let me tell you, at this point in my life, I had already been married and divorced, and I had 4 beautiful children that barely knew their father. I had been in and out of jail so many times I couldn't even count them. I had a DWI conviction, and I could not keep a job because I couldn't pass couldn't pass a drug test. My new wife was pregnant at the time with my second son, the fourth of my children. Honestly, I had no business being a husband or a father. I had so much guilt and resentment built up towards myself that I felt like that I had abandoned the children from my first marriage, and that I was somehow going to make up for that by children in my new marriage. I was trying to redeem myself. I was trying to redeem myself in my own eyes, but it wasn't working. It wasn't working. The only time that I was happy was when I was drinking. It's the only time I ever found joy, which was every day at this point in my life. My mood would swing and I would become very unstable. I would lash out at anyone, driving them away, anyone that tried to care about me. I would not have it. I did not feel worthy of love. I simply could not deal with life. I did not feel worthy of love. My drug use became more than my family could handle at times. I would spend every dime we had to stay high, and I simply could not or would not deal with life. And the depression that I was feeling only fueled my desire to use more. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, months turned into years. My appetite for drugs was at an all-time high, and I would do anything to get it. Nothing came before it. Finally, I was faced with a choice. My wife came to me. I remember this day. She came to me with a choice, a very simple choice. The drugs or your family, us or them. Well, the choice I made that night would only prove the lengths that I have gone to and the level of insanity that I had achieved. That night I chose drugs and alcohol over my family. I packed up and moved. I rationalized it though. I made it sound real good. I told myself that I was no good for them and I was saving them from the life that I was leading. At that time, it never occurred to me to stand up and be the father that I had promised to be, to stand up and be the husband that I promised that I would be. It never occurred to me that that night would be a turning point in my life, because you see, as bad as it would only get worse from there. Now, I had no baggage, I had no accountability, I had no curfew, I was free to come and go as I pleased. I did. I spent many nights in hotel rooms, on the streets, moving from girl to girl, from job to job. And then I was introduced to the street drug methamphetamines. And I've never, ever, ever experienced anything like that. It had an instant control over my life. I would do anything to have it. I'd lie for it. I stole for it. I cheated for it. I did anything I could to have it. I started dealing it. And it was no surprise to me that I found myself being locked up and being sentenced to TDCJ. I got 5 years. I got 5 years for the possession of a controlled substance. And I also had a handgun, so on top of that too. But I went into prison. I remember when I went into prison, I had every intention of picking right back up where I had left off, because it's just like this mental cycle. But I had a moment of clarity. There's my 7-year chip. Thank you. I had a moment of clarity. And then whenever I went in there, I decided to take a look at my life. I decided to honestly just step beside myself and just look in to just see what I saw. You know what I saw? I saw an alcoholic. I saw a junkie. I saw a street person who was rarely sober enough to face my own life. I saw a used-to-be father of 4 children that would not even recognize me if I walked right up to him on the street. I saw a desperate man and a scared little boy. My life was revealed to me that night, and I never will forget the question that followed. Is that the man you want to be? Is that the man you want to be, or is there more? That night I decided that my life was worth more, and that somehow I was going to rise above myself and overcome. See, when I tell this story, many people don't understand the actual desire of the Holy Spirit of God that was given to me that night. You know, at that moment, I felt hope. Honestly, I couldn't explain what had just happened, but I knew there was something. And it wasn't long after that I received a visit from the Pardons and Parole Division of TDCJ, and I was granted parole. I was going to go home. I was scared. Bro, I was scared, man. I was scared out of my mind. I was about to be released into the same streets that had almost killed me, that had cost me everything. I was about to be released back in there. And I grew up in America, and I knew of God. I did not have a relationship with God at this point in my life, but I knew of Him. I heard the preaching of Jesus, and I knew of His saving grace, but honestly, at this moment in my life, I thought of it as a hoax. I thought of it as money-making scheme that played on the promise of an afterlife. I thought of it as all of these crazy things, a babysitter for the elderly. I had all these ideas, false ideas of what God was, but something inside of me decided that I needed to take a chance, so I did. I was inside of that prison cell, 5 by 8, in all of my brokenness, about to be released back into the very streets that had almost killed me. I was all alone when I went down on my knees. There was no choir, there was no congregation, there were no deacons, there was no pastor. It was me, my brokenness, and God. And I started praying, and I prayed, 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 and I prayed to a God that I did not know, for strength that I wasn't sure that he could provide. You know, I prayed for salvation that I wasn't even sure that existed. And I prayed for courage that I wasn't really sure that I had, but I prayed, and the tears of uncertainty quickly turned into sure confidence as I asked Jesus in my heart. So I got released. Here I am. I got released back into society, and I immediately got involved with the group of CRs. CR, along with God in my life, has changed. I have 8 years sober. I have over 8 years sober, but it's so much more than just 8 years sober. It's 8 years with a relationship with God. You know, Celebrate Recovery is more than a meeting. It's a wonderful discipleship, teaching men and women how to be free from their past, but more importantly, how to live in freedom for the future. Join me and Damon every Sunday, right here, 3 o'clock, Lake Country Church, and there is no shame in taking that first step in your recovery. Thank you.
Tell you what, we're so proud of these people. Just coming forth, just kind of ripping open the chest cavity and saying, man, we're jacked up, we're messed up, and there's a whole God. There's a perfect God who does bring healing and restoration. And can I just say this real quick? Father does that. It's not just meth. It's not just the alcohol. It's bitterness. It's brokenness. It's religiosity. There's a God who wants to set us completely free, and I hope you hear that today. Oh, thank you guys. Man, Dana, thank you guys again so much for that. And they're our ministry focus this month. So if you want to check out more about their ministry, you can see that out in the foyer. Today, man,